In this tutorial, I'm going to be sharing how I made this freestyle jumpsuit. Hi guys, my name is Ayomide. This is the face behind this channel. On this channel, you would find sewing tutorials and pattern drafting tutorials. In this tutorial, I'm going to be sharing how I made this jumpsuit that I'm wearing. If you are interested, you should see this video up until the very end. Now let's get started. To get started, these are the materials I'm going to be working with. I have this flowery crepe material here and it is about 2.5 yards. I'm also going to be doing an illustration, a mini illustration on this pattern paper because I'm going to be cutting directly on my fabric. However, if I cut directly on my fabric, you would not see what I'm doing. So I'm going to do a mini illustration on this pattern paper. So assuming this pattern paper is my fabric, I'm going to be folding it into two, and we're not going to be splitting this at the center front even though it is a jumpsuit. The very first measurement I'm going to be taking would be for the casing for the rope, which would be tied along the neckline. So I'm just going over to mark the casing. Note that I'm not marking the exact measurement that I used on my fabric because this is just a miniature pattern. So please be advised to mark your desired measurement. So guys, this here is going to be the casing for the rope I will tie along the neck, and then the next thing I will do is to take all of my other vertical measurements. Because it's going to drop from the shoulder, I'm going to be taking some measurements off from the shoulder. Now depending on how low you want your jumpsuit to be, you can take a minimum of 3 and you can take as much as 4 or 5 inches away. So that's why you can see that I placed 3 inches at the first line that I drew, meaning I took out 3 inches away from this measurement for this miniature pattern, and I went ahead to mark my shoulder to chest line measurement, shoulder to waist measurement, and shoulder to hip measurement, which is what I marked there. So here would be the chest line, this would be the waist line, and this is going to be the hip line. On the casing line for the rope, I'm going to be marking half of the shoulder measurement plus about 5 inches extra. Because of the rope that we are putting, we are going to need an extra volume of fabric there. So you can mark as much as 5 inches extra or 6 inches extra. On the chest line, I'm going to be marking a quarter of the bust measurement plus about 2 to 3 inches of ease. This also depends on how big you want your jumpsuit to be. On the waistline, I'm repeating the same thing, a quarter of the waist measurement plus about 2 to 3 inches extra of ease. And on the hip line also, the same measurements, a quarter of the hip measurements plus about 2 to 3 inches for ease allowance, because this is not a fitted jumpsuit. Once that is done, I'm going to be taking the crotch measurement from the waist, and in addition to your actual crotch measurement, please add an extra 3 to 4 inches for ease, because it's going to be free around that area. We don't want the crotch area to be so tight or so fitted. So 3 to 4 or 5 inches, depending on how bogus you want to be, is fine. So please disregard this curve I drew right here. I made a mistake earlier. Remember, this is our crotch line. So from the center front, from the fold, I'm going to be marking 1 inch inward, and I'm going to be drawing a line down from the crotch line. Okay, so mark 1 inch and draw a line down, and then I'm going to be drawing the crotch curve this way. You can see that. Then from the other side of the pattern, which is going to be the side, you can decide to take your measurement from the hip all the way down to the length of your jumpsuit, or you can come in by 1 inch and take your measurement from the hip all the way down, just to give it a little bit of shape. So if you don't want your jumpsuit to be too big at the hem, you can just mark 1 inch inward or 1.5 inch inward and connect it from your hip. So I'm going over to trim out my pattern so you can see what it's going to look like. This is what my pattern looks like after trimming it out. I'm going to be repeating this whole process directly on my fabric, and then I'm going to be cutting. So I did this on the pattern paper so that it can be very clear and visible for us all to see. I would need 2 pieces, one for the front and one for the back. This is me cutting directly on the fabric, as I have gone ahead to place my measurements as I illustrated earlier. through, guys, and here is my fabric. This is what it looks like. This is also the crotch area. Now moving on to the sewing, the first thing you will need to do is to secure the armhole area with a bias tape. Even though I didn't do this, I just went straight ahead to sew in my casing, and I had to loosen a part of the casing so that I can secure the armhole area with a bias tape. So please, before you go ahead to sew in your casing and make the mistake that I made, make sure you finish off the armhole area either with a bias tape, or you can even use your overlocker, whichever one you want to do. And once you're done, you can go ahead and sew in the casing for the rope. I'm through, guys, and here is what I have. At this point, I still haven't realized my mistake, but let's just go ahead. So this is what I have. The next thing will be to fix the pockets, and I'm gonna need to cut out my pocket. It is D shape, like the letter D for dog, D shape. So what I'll go ahead and do first of all to fix my pocket is that I'm going to be determining where my waist area is, because obviously your pocket should be fixed around the waist. So I'm just going over to mark 8 inches below the armhole area, and I'm pinning my pocket on my fabric, making sure that right sides faces each other. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to repeat likewise for the other side of the jumpsuit. This is because I want the pockets to be on the either side. So I'm also going over to mark 8 inches below, which is where my actual waistline is, and I'll also pin the pockets down. Once I'm through with that, I'll go ahead and stitch the pockets down. So make sure that you place right sides of your pockets against each other. I'll also repeat likewise for the other side and also for my either panel, because you need to fix your pocket on the both fabric pieces that you have. The next thing will be to join the sides together. So I have one fabric flat on my table, and I'm going to be placing the other one on it, making sure right sides faces each other. So I'll just go over and then pin my fabrics together first of all. To sew this down, I'm going to be starting from the armhole area, take it all around the pocket to create the opening, and then take it all the way down to the hem of this jumpsuit. I'm going to be repeating likewise also for the other side of this jumpsuit too. Also, I'm going to be stitching the crotch area down using 1/2 inch seam allowance. I would also stitch the hem also. And for the rope for the neckline, I have this long strip of fabric that is about 2 inches wide. I'll place right sides against each other so that I can create a loop that I'm going to be passing through the casing that we created. Guys, so far so good. This is what my jumpsuit looks like. This is the pocket, that's the opening for the pocket, and this is how the jumpsuit looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be passing this rope I have through the casing, and I have my safety pin right here, which is what I'm going to be using to pass through the casing. So guys, can you imagine, it was at this point that I realized that I was supposed to actually finish off the armhole area with a bias tape. So don't be like me, make sure you finish off yours with a bias tape first of all before you go through the other process. So I'm passing the rope through the first casing, and I'm taking it through the other casing without cutting the rope. Now this is optional. You can decide to have one rope at the front and one rope at the back, but I just wanted a continuous rope so that I just have to tie this on one shoulder. I'm done passing the rope through the jumpsuit, and this is what I have. So you can see that I just have to tie this on one shoulder. However, if you choose to have 2 ropes, that's fine, meaning you would be tying on both of your shoulders. I love the flexibility and the simplicity of this outfit. You can wear it during summer, and you can wear it to any outdoor occasion. It's also pretty simple and pretty easy to make. So it was here I realized that I had to finish off my armhole area, but it's still good. If you found this tutorial helpful, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please click on the subscribe button below, and until my next tutorial, make sure you have a wonderful day.